This is my 2020 Harley Davidson Livewire, and this video seeks to answer one question. Can you tour on it? Now there's videos all over the internet about how awesome this bike is, so I'm not going to gush. Instead, what I want to get into is, can you actually use it to tour? And when I say tour, I mean tent, food, sleeping bag, mattress, stove, everything you need to do proper motorcycle touring. Now it doesn't exactly look like a touring bike, does it? And it's not. It has a slim, narrow seat. It has an aggressive riding stance. But I'm determined to see just how flexible a vehicle this can be. Now down here is a longitudinally mounted electric motor, and here you have a 15.5 kilowatt battery. This is what they call a stressed member. The frame is actually built to include the casing of the battery. It has level 1 charging, which means plug it in the wall and wait 12 hours for it to fill up. But it does have level 3 charging, and that is why I bought this bike. That is why I think that some type of long distance touring is going to be doable on this machine. Now this is the first ever fully electric bike from Harley Davidson, and they claim that it's the #1 electric motorcycle seller in the country. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I've never seen one rolling around. Now maybe it's because they haven't sold very many yet, but there's no aftermarket stuff for this bike. There's no panniers you can get, there's no rack, there's no box, and of course Harley doesn't make this stuff yet either. But what it does have when you lift the seat up, which is where the 110 volt charger is stored, is a good strong frame that I think I can lash a lot of stuff to. Now the level 3 charging that Harley has put into this bike means that on a level 3 DC fast charger, you can roll in completely empty and then leave with 100 miles in the battery in about 60 minutes. Now practically speaking, you never really roll in at zero. You roll in with 20–30% remaining in the battery, so you're in and out of there in about 45 minutes. Now as of the time of this filming, March 2021, infrastructure for charging is pretty spotty. DC fast chargers are limited to high population areas and freeways at this point. And don't get me started about the different providers of charging infrastructure, the apps, the cards, the accounts, the account verification. Some days I feel like I spend more time trying to get the charge to start than it actually takes to charge the bike. But I'm a believer. I know it's going to happen more and more and more. And so let's set out and figure out whether we can tour on this bike. Let's take a look at the map. So the destination for this little experiment is a campground in Sky Valley. Ordinarily, on a gas-powered bike with, say, 230 miles in the tank and gas stations all along here, probably head this direction, lovely scenic route, but we can't do that because we have 100 miles to play with maximum. So we're going this way. We're going to head out of North County. We're going to go up through Fallbrook and eventually get to Temecula. Now, there are charging stations right there, but the problem with this is that they are EV Go stations, and in this area they charge by the minute, which for reasons I'll explain later absolutely does not work. It's a rip-off. So we have to go north and we have to go up to an Electrify America charging station up here, which charges by the kilowatt. Then we have to double back, which is typical of electric motorcycle touring. And eventually we head on out and we go over the mountains, and we have to stop in Palm Desert because I'm not done for the day. I know after we get to the destination I want to ride some more. So we have to charge there as well, and then with a full battery head out to our destination to pitch camp. Okay, so here's our campsite in Sky Valley just north of Palm Desert, and we've got about a 58-mile run that I want to do into the Joshua Tree National Park. In order to do that, however, we have to first go to Chiriacao Summit to charge up because we've got to get back again. So then we'll head up into the Joshua Tree. Can't wait for that. And then it will be time to come back. Probably won't charge again because the dude at the campsite says that there's an RV 30 amp connection that I can charge when I get back. Well, I rolled in here about 44% battery remaining, and we're at 71 right now. I'm getting loads of questions from people, so it's hard to actually film. But we'll be out of here in a few more minutes. I'm just going to grab a coffee and we'll get going. There are between 200 and 400 million motorcycles in use in the world today, and they're nearly all internal combustion engines, some of them two-stroke, which means that air pollution is a huge problem in the cities. But with new technology like this coming online, it gives me reason to hope that we can electrify two wheels, that we can cut those emissions, we can get that CO2 out of the air. But we got to do two things. First thing we got to do is adopt technology like this, which means that with more people wanting it, prices come down, range improves, charge time improves, and more of them hit the road. But the other thing, and I guess the point of this video, is that we got to make some changes in the way we live our lives. And they don't have to be big changes. This touring day for me is absolutely epic. Some incredible roads, unbelievable scenery. You can still do it. You just stop every hour or so and charge up, stretch your legs and keep going. But so far, for me, this is a touring motorcycle. Stop number 2, beautiful hot sun of Palm Desert. This is a charge point, another DC fast charger. Rolled in here with only about 20% after an incredible run down a road called Pines to Palms. And now charging up again before heading out to the campsite. A few years ago, my folks and I rode coast to coast across the United States. It was an incredible experience, and anyone else who's done that kind of riding knows that there are really high highs and really low lows when you tour on a motorcycle. Things never really go according to plan. I didn't make it out to Chiriacao Summit today. I didn't make it into the Joshua Tree. But that's the main thing you have to factor in when you ride motorcycles really long distances. And then you switch to electric. And that is that a fuel stop used to be 5 minutes and is now an hour. But that's exactly my point about making adjustments, making compromises in order to try to get CO2 down, in order to live a decarbonized life. You got to make changes. Maybe in the future, Harley and the others will bring out bikes with ridiculously long ranges and really, really fast charge times and much better charging infrastructure in a lot more places. Certainly hope so. But I know that despite the 200 miles today instead of 300 miles that I planned to do, despite the stops, despite all of it, I feel really great riding that bike. It is a riot to ride. It stops everyone in their tracks. And it is so cool to be able to go way out here into the wide beyond on nothing but electric power. So now, bit of dinner out of a bag, a couple of beers, and probably an early night. Cheers.
Good morning. Well, last night I camped back there behind that fence because it was the only way to avoid probably 30-40 mile an hour desert winds. It was crazy. but got a full charge on the 30 amp RV connection here in the campsite, and I'm going to stick to yesterday's plan now, head out to Chiriaco Summit, charge up on the fast charger, and then get into the Joshua Tree. Well, that was a long, hard slog on the 10 going east in the wind, getting about maybe 1 mile for every 1.5% of the battery. It was a slog. The bike doesn't like that kind of riding, not with this weight, crosswinds and all that. But we're charging up now, and next we finally get into the Joshua Tree.
And what a great surprise Chiriaco Summit was. Classic American story of an American entrepreneur setting up a filling station in the 20s. And then General Patton setting up the Desert Training Center where more than 1 million troops were trained for World War II. Anyway, off to Joshua Tree. I moved to America 20 years ago, and pretty much from the start I've been visiting the Joshua Tree. It's always been a place of awe and inspiration for me. Its out-of-this-world landscapes and its huge variety of life despite its arid conditions. We've known about climate change for decades, but the steps we've taken so far are sadly too little and too late. The global consensus is that we have emitted so much CO2 since the Industrial Revolution, we have locked in 2 degrees centigrade temperature rise already. That's why the Joshua Tree, which lends its very name to this beautiful national park, is expected to almost completely die out by the end of this century. Reminded of this sad fact, it was time to head home and focus on the future. Stopping at Palm Desert to charge again, over the mountains, and then stopping at Cahuilla Casino near the town of Anza in California. Then a beautiful scenic ride all the way home.
Well, we just left the desert and the heat and quickly gained altitude, as you might have seen in that last little bit of footage. And now we got snow-topped mountains behind us. Wanted to make another point about touring on this thing, and that is that there is no real noise to speak of, and there's no vibration. So yeah, it's got an aggressive rider stance, and yes, it's got a thin saddle that's narrow, but the absence of sound and vibration makes you be able to knock out a 300+ mile day super easily, which is what we're doing today. I'm now at 4,000 plus feet in March in California at a place called Cahuilla Casino, and this is the last charge of the day. They charge you like 3 cents per kilowatt here because they want you to go in and gamble. It's brilliant. So just a couple of hours out now, and it's worth reconsidering the question, can you tour on a Harley Davidson Livewire? Well, I think if you're Ewan McGregor and you've got a whole team of people behind you and you've got Harley building you a custom version of the bike to tour on, and you've got a support crew in 2 Rivians, I think the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, just listen to the way he says Harley. Harley, Harley, Harley. All right, so what if you're a person who, best case, is open to electrification but isn't ready to make the move now, or worst case, just don't give a shit and think it's someone else's problem, the whole climate change thing? Then the answer is no. You cannot tour on a Harley Davidson Livewire. It is too small, you can't get enough equipment on it, it doesn't have the range, it takes too long to charge, and you cannot tour the way that you want to tour. So, if you're a person who is not willing to change your ways, then no, you cannot tour on a Harley Davidson Livewire. All right, so what if you're my dad? Now, he and I and my stepmom rode across the whole country a few years back, and if you're interested in learning more about that, I can post it in a link below. But if you're my dad, you want to be off the bike by 3 p.m. And if you're not, you get really, really grumpy. Yeah. Love you, Dad. And what if you're someone like me? Well, for me, this is the only way forward. So I think it's important for us to take our purchasing power, divert money from that CVO Road Glide, get something like this, and adapt accordingly. Because for me, until Harley makes something like an electric CVO Road Glide, this is the only bike for me. I hope you enjoyed my little touring trip. Thanks for watching.